Hey guys, so many lessons to learn from what happened with Charlie Kirk and the tragedy that came out of it, but the beauty God is bringing from it. And a couple of quick points I wanted to make. One is I saw his wife publicly forgive her husband's killer. I found that to be beautiful. That's what Christianity is about. C.S. Lewis once said, you know, forgiveness is always a great idea until it's your turn to do it, right? But she did it, and that's what it means to be a Christian. Sometimes we have to take up our cross and deny ourselves so that we can forgive others, because Jesus took up his cross to forgive us. Amen? Not sometimes. We always got it. If there's a situation where we need to forgive, we've always got to do that. Amen? Secondly, a lot of young men have reported that they've been seeing Charlie Kirk in dreams, preaching the gospel to them, and allegedly. So it sounds like a lot of people are getting saved. And God's using this in some very unique, cool way that I just find amazing. Thirdly, some people have been saying Charlie Kirk's not a murderer. He died. A martyr. I meant to say, excuse me, because he died for political reasons. I would say no. He is a martyr. Amen. Because John the Baptist also died for rebuking a politician, and yet it was martyrdom because he did it for Jesus. I think if Charlie Kirk, one, had the heart to do this for Jesus, and two, was killed for something he taught that was biblical, then that in and of itself would suggest him being a martyr. Fourth, this point could be misunderstood and mistaken, so I want you guys to really listen carefully to what I'm trying to say. We don't just live in alternate realities in America. We don't just live with differing views in America, but as Father Casey said, we live in alternate realities. Imagine you're a white man who grew up in a trailer. You went to school and got made fun of and called trailer trash. You also got told that you were racist simply because you're white, even if you didn't realize you were, even though you've never felt a racist thought in your life. And you were told that basically you couldn't get into a college even though you met the requirements because too many other white people had, already been accepted, so they needed to try to even it out. And on top of all that, you were told that you had white privilege, and you felt like it was a total mock to how hard your life had been. You might start leaning right-wing if that was your life experience, right? But let's imagine, on the other hand, you're a black man who watched your cousin get killed by a cop and then get away with it, for example. And let's say, or maybe change the scenario a little. Maybe not by a cop, maybe by some racist white people who claimed that it was self-defense, and then the justice system failed. It wasn't self-defense. They actually initiated it. But, those guys got off trouble, and your cousin ended up dying, and no justice ever came of it. And then those guys also didn't get in any trouble because, moreover, they would say, excuse me, guys, I'm kind of just waking up. But they said, well, the guns were illegal, and that was part of their defense or whatever. And you might suddenly hate the Second Amendment, and you might start to feel more left-wing. Now, hear my heart. I'm not criticizing Brother Charlie. In fact, I've done nothing but compliment him. He's a martyr. But I want you guys to try to think about this from someone else's point of view for a moment. If you were that black man and you heard Charlie Kirk say this statement, even if it was out of context, and even if you can defend this statement, that's not the point right now. If you heard him say it's necessary to allow some gun deaths every year for the sake of having our Second Amendment right, how would you feel about Charlie in that moment if you were him? I'm not saying whether Charlie's right or wrong. I'm not saying that Charlie can't be defended, and that's beside the point. I'm saying if you were him, how would you be feeling? My point is to step into someone else's shoes for a moment and take off your lens. Or let's say you're a gay man and you felt your whole life like you were gay. And by the way, I believe it's a sin to be gay. We talked about this. Me and Ross did a video on this. But I also have a lot of compassion on people, because I do believe people could struggle their whole lives feeling like they're gay, and then get told, well, then you're not going to heaven. And then they start to feel like, wow, God is so cruel, and Christians are so cruel, and I hate this religion. And so we need to have compassion on them and make a difference, like the book of Jude says. Yes, it's a sin, but we're going to love them out of that sin. We're not going to condemn them out of it, right? And we got to realize that. So if you're a gay person and you simply hear Charlie Kirk talk about how the LGBTQ is spreading hate and stuff, how might that make you feel? And my point in saying that is not to say Charlie did anything wrong. That's not my point. My point is to say, you know, if Charlie did do something wrong, I'm not aware of it. From what I understood, he was very respectful about the way he presented this stuff. He was very willing to dialogue. And from what I've seen, that seems to be the case. But my point is this. If you were on the other side, might you see things differently? And can that be a motive to show compassion to our political enemies? And on the other side for the left, same with you. And I've heard some left-wing people say, well, if you voted for Trump, you're a bigot. If you could... Really? What if you voted for Trump because you were tired of seeing illegal immigrants come across the border and crimes being committed without any screening? And by the way, I'm actually more... Before you say, Ree, you're such a right-wing bigot yourself, I actually lean left-wing on that. I'm American Solidarity Party. I'm not a conservative. That's called the Christian Democrat Party. That's what I lean. So I'm not a Republican. Now, Ross is more conservative. But here's my point. You might have assumed I was Republican right there. Instead, I'm not. I don't even agree with that point of view. I'm just actually trying to put myself in someone else's shoes and think about it. I'm more conservative when it comes to issues like abortion and LGBTQ stuff in schools and classrooms and sports and being against abortion and whatever. I said that. My point is I'm more conservative in those issues, but then on social issues like towards the poor and towards the sick and towards the needy, I lean more liberal. That's biblically what I see. But you know what? None of that matters. That's beside the point. My point is this. Can we try to understand where the other person is coming from so that we can learn empathy and learn compassion towards other people? And there's some left-wing people who've said, oh man, Charlie Kirk got what he deserved. He got what was coming to him. He taught hate and no empathy his whole life, so he can't expect me to have anything but hate and no empathy for him now that he's dead. And even if that was true, and I'm not convinced it is, but I'm not here to... That's beside the scope of this video. Even if that was true, guys, it's not about giving people what they deserve. At least not if you're going to call yourself a Christ follower. A Christ follower loves people and shows them grace because we were loved and shown grace when we didn't deserve it. Right? So when I hear that kind of eye for an eye mentality, that sort of revenge, evil for evil mentality, I can't think of anything farther from the heart of God and more anti-gospel at all. I mean, the gospel says you get what you don't deserve because Christ got what he didn't deserve. You get what Christ deserved because he got what you deserved. That is what the gospel says. So that's how we should treat others too. If we've been shown that loving grace, we ought to really show that loving grace. Amen? And so anyway, those are 4 points I wanted to make. Just let's try to empathize with people on the other side. Yes, Charlie Kirk is a martyr, I believe. It's amazing that his wife forgave. And it's amazing that God is even using this to get people saved. And these are points that I thought were worth making today in this video. But I love you guys, and grace and peace.